Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wench Bench. That's different. I'm going to keep going, everybody, where friends sit and talk about fabulous fictional females and how their stories have influenced us throughout our lives. My name is Fonda.
And my name is Alison.
And today, Alison's going to be talking about female characters from Letterkenny.
Yeah!
It's a Canadian TV show, correct?
Sure is.
Yay, yeah. Canada! Talking about a show from Canada for the first time. Okay, I'm done with that bit. Please, Alison, tell me, what are we talking about?
Yes, so many people might be wondering, what is Letterkenny? And I have the answer for you.
Great sales pitch.
So Letterkenny is a Canadian sitcom that follows the residents of a small rural community in Ontario that is loosely based on one of the creators' hometown. It started as a YouTube series called Letterkenny Problems. Crave picked it up as a full-time show in March 2015. There are so far 8 seasons. Each season has been 6 episodes with a special in the middle. All except for season 8 that had 7 episodes because they didn't film a special.
Ah.
And season 9 starts on December 25th of 2020, which by the time this comes out will have already passed.
Ooh.
It is a very meme-based comedy format, so there's a lot of repeated jokes, a lot of joke structure that is the same, and a lot of the comedy comes from situations and physical acting. One of the characters, Wayne, the way he moves is very kind of deliberate and fast and almost robotic. And it's very funny to watch, but trying to explain it and like tell people what it is, it's a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about are hard to explain why it is that they're funny, but it's just funny in my opinion. Some people might not find it that way, but I do. Many of the characters in the show play on small town stereotypes and simple archetypes, so it makes you feel like you know the person or know a person like that, such as a character known as Joint Boy, who smokes weed.
Joint Boy. Okay, I was like, is there something wrong with like his joints in his body?
No.
Like, I was worried. Okay.
And he looks like an MMA fighter. So he's got these big tree trunk legs and he's all muscly and he fights a lot. And I used to take kickboxing from that guy. Every time I watched a show, I'm like, holy shit, that looks like my old kickboxing instructor. So they do a really good job at capturing the characters in a very easily applicable way that you kind of are like, oh, like these are my friends. Like I'm gonna go hang out with my friends from Letterkenny. So it's weird that way, but I like it.
Oh, okay.
The show is pretty offensive and definitely gets away with more than it should.
Oh.
because it's just so endearing and like it's kind of in an all-in good fun sort of way. But I would kind of liken the offensive nature to not even necessarily be as bad as something like South Park, where South Park is being intentionally offensive. Like they're just kind of being stereotypically offensive, but it's hard to explain, and as far as that goes, you kind of just have to watch it.
Do they get backlash because of it then? Or?
Not really.
Oh.
Or at least not in the spaces that I exist online, because I don't really go looking for that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people that I know like it. It reminds me of other Canadian comedy shows such as Trailer Park Boys and Corner Gas and even Schitt's Creek.
Okay.
Like, so it kind of blends together this sort of at-home comedy of Canada that, like, Trailer Park Boys could definitely be seen as offensive in many of the episodes. And so it's kind of that level of offense.
Gotcha. Okay. Continue, my friend.
Completely unrelated to anything really to do with the story, but a fact that I know Fonda will love.
Oh!
The emblem for the show is like a German Shepherd. And it opens a lot with the character Wayne saying something while holding or being surrounded by German Shepherds ranging anywhere from puppies to adults. So it's very cute because Wayne is a pretty stereotypical, like, hot farmer kind of vibe to him.
Okay.
And then with all the puppies around him, it's It's very cute.
Aww.
After binge watching all 8 seasons, the accents and the way that they speak kind of have like leaked into my brain, and they are now living there rent free, and sometimes they come out in vocalizations basically against my will. So to explain this, for anybody who's seen this, these will all make sense. For anybody who hasn't, check out some clips. They show how many times they repeat these phrases over and over and over again, and it just sticks in there somehow.
They just do it.
So it just happens.
Cool.
So one of them is the other day.
The other day.
So it's, you were hanging out with your friends the other day.
Oh, okay.
Or hard no. That's a big one. To be fair. How are you now?
Hi. Can you say that again?
How are you now?
Oh, how are you now? Okay.
How are you now? With the response of good and you, or not so bad and you. God. So I say, how are you now? To people sometimes, and it just happens. I've never said that before in my life, and now I say it all the time.
Oh, awesome.
And the last one is pitter patter, which is like, let's get going, like get at her, like kind of thing. So like pitter patter, Fonda, like come on, pick it up, like let's go.
Okay. Pitter patter is like slight rain, like taking its time, kind of like that's what I'm doing, so I need to hurry it up.
Well, it started out as a longer phrase and then just shortened. It started out as pitter patter, let's get at her.
Oh.
And then it just shortened to pitter patter.
Cool.
Yeah, so those just, they live there and they get stuck in their accent, and it's just this like very like Ontario, Eastern Canada kind of farmer drawl, and it's great.
Gotcha.
So before we like super get into the women, I'm going to take us on a quick detour to touch on some of the big name characters and locations that I will be mentioning later.
Okay.
The show's main focus is Wayne and Katie, siblings who run a small farm and produce stand with the help of Daryl and Squirrely Dan. This group is known as the Hicks, like capital T, capital H. A big theme of the show is fighting. So there's lots of fist fights. They treat it as kind of an old-fashioned way to solve their problems, and it's rarely continued to be considered like a personal offense. After the fight, most often everybody just shakes hands and moves on. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like, we disagree, and we're gonna throw down, and the winner wins. And Wayne always wins. He's like the best fighter in Letterkenny.
And he's the main guy?
He's the main guy.
Okay.
Yeah. And so people will come to him and be like, I think I'm the toughest guy in Letterkenny. But it's always Wayne.
It's always Wayne.
It's always Wayne. Then there are the hockey players named Riley and Jonesy. Katie has an on-again, off-again polyamorous relationship with them.
Oh.
They are very dim, but the character arc of all of these characters is really weird, and I've come to love Riley and Jonesy. I didn't like them at the beginning of the show, but I do like them now. There's a term online that I think really encapsulates them, and it's himbo. They're boy bimbos, so they're kind of dumb, but they're sweet, and it works. Another group is the Skids. Basically a bunch of burnouts and drug addicts. They're really weird. They talk about cooking meth all the time, and they have like dance parties in a parking lot.
What? Did you? Okay.
Yeah, it's these are all like small town stereotypes, so a lot of times you do have that like that group of kind of like weird drug addicts. It's strange, but it's a thing. It's fine.
Got it. Cool.
We also have the members of the nearby First Nation Reserve that are referred to in the show as the Natives, capital T, capital N. And one of our fabulous fictional females is Tanis, a super badass woman from this group.
Ooh.
Yes. They return in many episodes, sometimes as enemies and sometimes as allies of the Hicks. There's also, among the other characters, there is a very flamboyant and closeted minister, a raunchy bartender, Mennonites, Quebecois, a very horny husband and wife, a women's hockey team that wins more than the men's, and those D-gens from upcountry. So
It's like, at first, I'm not gonna lie, I thought you said like degens as in like DJs, and I was like, I don't get the but
shorthand for degenerates.
got it now. Clicked in.
Yeah.
Took like 5 seconds.
Yes. So it's a very colorful group. The show is like, each episode is like 20 minutes. It's so quick. And it's just rapid fire comedy constantly because it kind of plays up on that. You would assume that small town farmers and stuff were kind of slow and stupid, but they're actually all very quick-witted and they like snap back at each other, and it's very funny, like fast-paced comedy, which is entertaining to me.
To you.
So first I'm going to touch on 4 honorable mentions of female characters, and then we're going to get into Katie and Tanis, my 2 top ladies and the 2 main women in the story.
Okay.
Arguably.
I'm ready.
I consider them to be the 2 main women. So we are going to start with a character named Mrs. Mcmurray.
Oh.
She is married to a character that they just call Mcmurray. And so they don't really have first names, but it's fine. Her character loves gin and tonic almost as much as she loves fucking.
Oh.
Her and her husband have an agreed upon open relationship, and they are often trying to bring other residents of Letterkenny into the lifestyle. Wink.
So they're very sex positive.
They are. They flirt and do a lot of PDA, which borders on inappropriate, and then sometimes just jumps off the cliff into just straight up depravity.
Oh my God.
Like, there was an episode where there was a talent contest and Mcmurray dressed up as Santa and she dressed up as like a schoolgirl, and it was extremely inappropriate.
No.
And
oh dear.
Her and Katie actually had an encounter at a St. Paddy's Day event in the bathroom.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
So it's Mrs. Mcmurray. Love her. She's like drunk all the time. There's a running joke that she's way too hot for Mcmurray and that he just doesn't deserve her. But they're perfect for each other, and it's a weirdly good relationship, and I love it.
Aww.
Then we have Bonnie Mcmurray. So she is the sister of Mcmurray.
Okay. Is she also very...
She's pretty sex positive, and all of these women are going to be very sex positive. It's kind of just a thing. This character gets her own intro joke, kind of like Kramer, when he like comes in the door. But when she comes on screen, most of the male characters kind of just stop and say, Bonnie Mcmurray.
Okay.
She's very pretty, and she's young, and she's super nice. She has a huge crush on Wayne, but because he's a good old boy, he believes she is far too young for him. I think he says, like, you gotta let the paint dry on that a bit. Something along those lines.
Oh.
Then he's just like, no. Too young for me. It's not explicitly stated, but she definitely seems to be bisexual since she has shown interest in Katie as well as other boys.
Okay. So you said she's... Wayne's like, she's too young for me, so is she underage, or is she just like younger by like 5 years and he's like, I gotta wait a bit?
It kind of, there's no like explicit statements on age, but it seems like Wayne is probably in his early to mid 30s and Bonnie is like coming back from college, so she's in her like early 20s.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted some context. Thank you.
No, she's like a bartender sometimes, and she's good shit. I love Bonnie. Next, we have a character named Gaye, Gae, and she is a rebellious anarchist who joins in with the Skid group. She was actually sent to Letterkenny as punishment for poor behavior, and her and one of the Skids named Stuart end up having a pretty wild relationship. Like, there's some point where he's like tied up to a bed behind a curtain, and
oh
like,
my God.
She's like, just wait.
Oh my
So very,
word.
very powerhouse, very open-minded.
Dear Lord.
Her and the Skids kind of have a very, as I mentioned, anarchist outlook on life. A quote from her that kind of became a bit of a mantra for her and Stuart is, I hate the world, I hate my parents, I hate myself.
Oh. Oh.
But it's in like an empowering way. I don't know.
Okay.
Last of the honorable mentions is a character named Gail. So Gail is the bartender at Modine's, their local bar. And she is extremely crass. Like, extremely crass. And she's constantly talking about sex and making very out there and obvious innuendos that are like barely an innuendo. It's practically just saying
The thing. Yeah, okay.
right. It's practically just saying the thing. It's really hard to explain because this is one of the characters that like captures that physical comedy kind of joke.
Okay.
But she's constantly like gyrating and like not quite twitching. She like moves her hips around and she kind of like has her legs spread apart when she's standing all the time.
So is she like constantly doing like the hula hoop without the hoop?
It's not that specific because it's very random. So it's like all
Okay.
parts of her body and she kind of just like it's really hard to explain. It's weird and it kind of makes you uncomfortable, but then you kind of love her for it. And it would make you uncomfortable, Fonda. Let's put it this way.
Good to know. Good to know.
And Gail, like many of the women in Letterkenny, also has the hots for Wayne.
Is Wayne just like the catch
He
in
is.
Letterkenny?
'Cause
Okay.
He's a good old boy. He's a gentleman. He always dresses real nice. He's a hard worker. He's attractive. He's the best fighter in Letterkenny. He's good shit. How do I want to say this? She also apparently had a sexual relationship with Wayne and Katie's 90-year-old uncle.
Oh, what?
So,
Wait.
yeah, she's got like,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, that makes me personally uncomfortable.
I mean, she's a very sexually open woman. She talks about her pleasures a lot, and it's like she is TMI encapsulated. Always. 100% of the time, always too much information.
Got it.
Very rarely do we get to see a woman be this vulgar on screen, and I like it. It's great.
No, I was gonna say, like, in general, I'm not a person who likes vulgar comedy.
Yeah.
No matter the gender or sex of the person, I just don't like
Yeah.
it. But more often than not, in a lot of stuff I remember seeing that made me very much like, ugh, I'm uncomfortable. A lot of the vulgar stuff would come from male characters.
Yeah.
So I think, like, cool, make other people uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
it doesn't always have to be a man that makes someone uncomfortable. It can be a woman being like, this is me, I'm living in it, and you might think it's vulgar, and that's fine.
Yep. To really, like, bring home just how ridiculous Gail is, in the episode I had mentioned where they had a talent contest, she reenacts a monologue from her favorite movie, which happens to be a pornographic film titled Glad He Ate Her XXX.
Oh, my.
And Katie, I think it's Katie, who says that she actually did a really good job.
Jesus Christ. Sorry, I mean...
It's great.
Fuck. Okay. Oh.
So those are like my 4 honorable mentions. They're fun. They're ridiculous. I love it. And now we're gonna get into Tanis. Tanis is, I love Katie, but she takes like a slight second to Tanis. Tanis is my favorite female character, but Katie being the main character, I'm going to talk about her last because she has more to talk about.
Okay.
Tanis, whenever I see that she's in an episode, I'm like, fuck yeah, this is going to be a great episode. I'm going to love it. Tanis is played by Kenyette O'Horn, an Indigenous Canadian actress. She, in the show, is referred to many as Auntie Tanis.
Aww.
She is rough around the edges, a no-nonsense, like, confident, fabulous, badass leader. She's very community-oriented, but sometimes in a way that is troublesome.
Oh.
For example, she sells cigarettes, also known as darts in the show, and to many people in Canada, to Letterkenny. So because they get it for cheaper on the reservation, they then sell them to Letterkenny to make profit. But she uses that money to improve the lives of the other people on the res.
Okay.
Which is really cute. She also, at one point, puts mics in the hockey players' helmets so that she can stream their trash talk while they're playing hockey.
Why would she do that?
It's an interesting thing on YouTube. I think a lot of people enjoy watching that because then, like, in smaller hockey, that's kind of a big thing where they trash talk each other, I guess. But
okay.
This is kind of taken from a part of internet culture that I think has more to do with the youths that I am no longer a part of.
The youths of today.
And the best part is Tanis also doesn't understand it.
So you're like, I connect with this woman.
She just does it because she is trying to keep her little cousins off the streets because this is something that they're interested in. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to try and like take part in this and give them more content and stuff that they can engage with and keep them interested in hockey. So very cute.
Got a wholesome logic behind those choices.
Yes. She's also a very good cook. She holds cookouts for a lot of different people from her community and she invites the Hicks out and stuff like that, and it's cute.
Aw,
yeah.
I'm not sure, just because I know it's different from different First Nations communities and bands in Canada. But the one that she's from, do they show bannock in the show? Like her cooking bannock or like any of the people?
I think at some point they do. In one episode, two of her kind of main guys that she hangs out with a lot in her group are enticed away by these other women who are giving them sex because Tanis doesn't like fuck everybody. But these girls were like, come over here, like be a part of our gang kind of thing. And Tanis is like, the way to a man's heart is not through his zipper, it's through his stomach. And so she cooks this like huge cookout and the boys are just like, we want to go over there and eat Tanis's food because it smells so good. And then these other girls who are fucking them are really bad at cooking. So they end up leaving and coming back to Tanis. And she's like, come back to me. Like, I will welcome you back. I'm not going to hold it against you. I promise. She's great.
Love it. Okay.
But
cool,
I think
cool.
it does show her cooking a couple of those things. One night, Wayne actually comes to one of these cookouts and he sticks around because she cooks her steak the exact same way that he does. Oh. And they end up hooking up. And eventually they kind of date a little bit, which is very cute. After her kind of initial more one-night stand before her and Wayne actually start having a relationship, it turns out that she actually got pregnant. And so when she calls and she tells Wayne that she's pregnant, he's like, what do you want to do? Because he's a gentleman and he's awesome. And she decides that she wants to have an abortion. And she goes and gets one. And then the next time she sees Wayne, he's like, how are you doing? She's like, I'm okay. And he just like supported her through that. And she was just like, I don't want a kid. It's not my thing right now. I can't do it. And it wasn't made a huge deal of in the show, which I kind of love too, because it's very much, this show does a good job at kind of normalizing women talking about sex and like abortions and those kinds of things. It's like that stuff does happen more often than people are willing to talk about. Mm-hmm. And it was great. She just went and did it. And Wayne was like, all you, it's your body. I respect your autonomy.
Aww.
Yeah. They do, as I mentioned, they do eventually date, but it kind of doesn't work out. She's a little too rough around the edges for him. He's very much, because he is such a gentleman, he kind of wants a lady, but not in the like, I'm going to shut my mouth and not talk back to you, but more in like proper sort of decorum. Like Tanis burps a lot and kind of is like one of the guys kind of feeling, and they just don't fit together that way, which is perfectly fine. And it's funny because like when they break up, they're just like, you know what, like we're not really meant to be together, and Tanis is like, still want to fuck, and then they go and have breakup sex. Which I think is awesome.
She sounds, I can see why you like her. I totally get why you like her. You're definitely into a character, especially a female character, that's like confident in their decisions. They are like a wholeheartedly good person. They might be rough around the edges, but like their actions are, at the end of the day, because of, like, you know, something that you would consider sweet.
Yeah.
And you yourself are very pro-sex positivity. And
Yes.
so it totally makes sense why you like her.
Yeah. Actually, before, like, when her and Wayne first hook up, she literally just, like, grabs him by the fucking pants.
Oh, my.
And, like, it's very clear, like, she does not give mixed signals. And it's great. It's perfect. I love it.
She's upfront.
She's also super clever. At one point, Wayne stops them from selling the cigarettes in Letterkenny. But because that's, like, one of the biggest ways that Tanis gets money for helping her community, she's trying to convince him to let them sell again. And so she comes down and she's like, look at all the people you're helping. And she trots out, like, a little kid. And then she trots out, like, an old man. And then she brings out a 3-legged dog. And he's just oh, and, like, that's just so the weight of Wayne's heart. And he's holding it back. He's like, no, you're not allowed. And then she brings out a second 3-legged dog.
And he's like, oh my god, the dogs.
Like, I have to help you.
Oh.
So it's great because she's just like, I know how I can convince you.
You're a man who supports the animals and
He
loves the good dogs.
Loves the puppers.
Aw. I always feel like most people, like, if someone likes a dog, more often than not, I'm like, okay, deep down you're a good person.
Yeah.
Like, that could be false, but most people I have met in my life, if they like dogs and treat dogs well,
Yeah.
they're a good person.
Yeah, like, if you hate dogs, it's like, I'm gonna judge you a little harsher. I'm gonna keep my eye on you.
Like, hating a dog, like, if you're like, oh, dogs just aren't for me, I'll be like, I get that.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
maybe
different.
you're allergic, maybe you had a bad experience, I get it. But if someone hates dogs or has a dog and is a bad owner,
Yeah.
I'm like, ah.
I'm gonna squint
Yeah.
my eyes and judge you
Yep.
harshly.
So the fact that Wayne's just a sucker.
He loves them so much. At one point, Katie convinces him to go to the city because she's like, we could stop at the SPCA and play with the puppies. And he's like, so Wayne is so sweet. I love him so much.
I like him more now because of this dog story
Yes.
with the 3-legged puppers.
So one of my favorite Tanis episodes is season 5, episode 3, Hard Right Jay.
Oh.
In this episode, the sports team, the Letterkenny Chiefs, have decided to change their name, something no one in town gives a shit about. But a white nationalist shows up to try and protest it. This character is named Jay, and he is played by Jay Baruchel, another pretty popular Canadian actor and comedian and creator.
Comedian.
Jay makes his rounds through all of our recurring characters, trying to win people over to his cause and failing spectacularly. When he tries to reason with Riley and Jonesy, who are now coaching the girls' hockey team, the Letterkenny Shamrockettes, the boys say the name isn't very PC. So they're like, yeah, like, why not change it? And then 2 of the female hockey players proceed to kind of riff on how sexist a name like the Shamrockettes is, and how you can't just slap "et" on the end of a name and have it be for the ladies' team.
Yep.
And then one of them jokes, what the hell is a Shamrockette anyways? A leaf with tits?
Oh.
Yeah. This joke is brought back later in a funny little background thing where they sort of focus on the leaderboard for the hockey teams, where all of the other teams that they're playing against kind of just have "et" on the name, such as the Bulldogettes, the Caribouettes, the Royalettes, and the Alouettettes.
Oh my god, that's so confusing.
It's just a funny little background thing that I noticed and Nick missed, and I was like, oh wait, go back. And so we rewound and we read them all. Having failed to recruit any townsfolk, Jay meets up with his alt-right buddies at the field, where all of them are wearing white polos and khakis, and they have tiki torches.
Ah, yes. Tiki torches.
Yes. When no one else is there, they wonder whose idea the name change was, at which point Tanis speaks up and says, ours. And she is standing there with her group, and they're all looking intimidating. And then she says, sup, Nazis.
Oh my gosh.
Which is very blunt of her, and I love it.
Yeah.
Jay then proceeds to attempt to win them over and curry favor with them by finding common ground. It does not go well. You can watch this whole clip on YouTube. It is fucking perfection. This is actually one of the first clips that brought Letterkenny to my attention.
Oh.
And I was like, so then I started watching more. Like, I'd always kind of known about it and seen like a couple of the Letterkenny problems, but this was the first clip that really made me be like, I want to watch that show. Aww. Because it was awesome and she's so cool. So obviously after this conversation doesn't go well, once Tanis loses her patience, a brawl ensues with the Hicks helping out the natives, and Tanis gets to punch Jay in the face.
Woo! Punching people in faces.
Perfect. Yes.
I don't condone violence, but I mean...
But yes, punch Nazis in the face.
Yeah.
I don't condone violence, but sometimes people need to get punched in the face.
Yeah, it can be a wake-up call.
So overall, Tanis knows who she is and what she is worth, and I love that about her.
She seems cool.
She is super cool. I love her so much. Next, we're going to talk about Katie, our main character, or our main female character. She is confident and snarky and clever and free-spirited and very fond of not wearing a lot of clothing. She a lot of times has her like abdomen showing and is in like tiny shorts and stuff. She can be seen sunbathing in front of the produce stand, which is one of our main kind of locations that you get to see on the show. Is her and her brother and their two friends just kind of chatting in front of the produce stand, and she's always laying out on one of those like stretch lounge chairs, just sunning herself. Regular banter between Wayne and Katie goes a little something like this: put on some fucking clothes. Not my forte. Unfortunate. It's great.
Cool. Cool.
Just Katie is so confident and like embraces her womanhood and sexuality so much, and it's great. And she's just like, I don't give a shit. Like, if you find my lack of clothing offensive, that's your problem. And I love it. Katie is the girl in town that everyone would fight for. So she's kind of like everyone's little sister in a way, so they all really care about her and just want what's best for her. But she has horrible taste in men.
Oh.
And apparently pretty decent taste in women, because as I mentioned before, Katie, relationship and sexuality wise, is very open. She's got the polyamorous relationship going on. She's all about the ladies and the boys, and it doesn't really matter. She has a very high libido, and a part of the reason why her relationship with Riley and Jonesy kind of fell apart was that they all found out that they were all sleeping with other people. So Riley and Jonesy were like, you're fucking other dudes. And she's like, you're fucking other women. I thought that this was what we had agreed upon. And they were like, no? Like, goodbye, I guess? I don't know. And then
question mark?
So that was a very weird, interesting relationship. And I've never really seen like polyamory portrayed that way on TV, which I thought was really kind of interesting. And same thing with showing off like the Mcmurray's relationship, is that it is very like open, and it is showing these different relationships that are not common in media. One of the most interesting parts about Katie, in my opinion, is how she is so liberal when it comes to sex, but seems to be very guarded when it comes to like actually being in a relationship with people. It reminds me a lot of friends that I've had who have been kind of hurt in the past by their partners. So they're fine with having kind of surface level relationships, but as soon as it starts to get too serious, they sort of just like back up and like get scared. And it's something that is nice to see on TV because you do see it so regular in real life, and the actress does a really good job at kind of portraying that little bit of vulnerability while still also like, vulnerability doesn't necessarily make you weak. Like, her vulnerability in that respect doesn't make her decision to be sexually liberal any less than, and it's... Yeah, it's good. She has a tough outer shell, which is I love, but she's like the soft little squishy inside, which is great. And she's fiercely loyal and protective of her brother Wayne, and to lesser and varying extents the rest of the residents of Letterkenny. And so she loves her home. That's where she grew up. That's where she belongs. And one of the fun episodes, one of my favorite episodes where Katie gets to really shine, is in season 3, episode 2, titled Puck Bunny. We get to see her stand up for her brother in her own way. While Wayne is dealing with an issue involving the Degens from upcountry, Riley and Jonesy need Katie's help with a puck bunny that has been causing problems among their senior men's hockey team.
Oh.
Do you know what a puck bunny is, Fonda?
Nope.
A puck bunny.
But puck is in, like, hockey puck?
Yeah.
Okay, bunny. You know, it sounds like fuck bunny, which, you know, like bunnies, rabbits like to have sex a lot.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yep, it's
okay.
Close. For all of our listeners, a puck bunny is a female ice hockey fan whose interest in the sport is primarily motivated by sexual attraction to the players rather than enjoyment of the game itself. So Riley and Jonesy's teammates are all fighting over the attention of one puck bunny named Angie, and it is causing them to lose more. So they ask Katie to step in and get rid of her, because Katie used to speak puck bunny, as she says, and it's like a lot of hockey slang terms, and she kind of picks it back up, and she's like, yeah, it's a language you really have to immerse yourself in.
Yep.
Because it has tons of hockey slang that I have looked up.
Nice.
Because I am not that into hockey. But Katie initially declines with a not my pig, not my farm. But when she finds out it is Angie, she agrees. Because you see, Angie is in fact Wayne's ex-girlfriend. The two dated for 5 years starting in high school, and she cheated on him and messed him up real bad.
Aww.
Mm-hmm. So now it's personal. Katie intercepts Angie in the locker room where she was looking for the players and begins to talk about Wayne and the breakup. Katie speaks in a low, sensual voice, kind of hinting that she regrets to getting the chance to be with Angie. The two get very close, and Angie shuts her eyes, thinking that they're going to kiss. And Katie warns her to stay away from the hockey players, then tells her to open her eyes, and promptly kicks her in the crotch.
Oh!
Angie collapses to the ground, and Katie walks away, calling Wayne to say, "Hey, big brother, don't say I never done nothing for you."
Aww.
This is not the only box kick in the show, and every time it happens, it's comedy gold for me. I feel like when done well, it can be so funny, because guys get kicked in the dick all the time on TV and in movies, but like you never really see a girl get kicked to the box. And I find it hilarious. One of Nick and I's favorite colloquialisms for this specific action is cunt punt.
Oh, I hate the C word. Alison! Oh.
I know you hate it, but I had to say it because it's so funny.
Oh. I disagree. Physically in pain.
Love you, Fonda.
I love you too. Let's continue, please.
Yes. Her relationship with her brother is so sweet. He is so protective of her, but never crosses that line into possessive. He allows her to make her own decisions and will stand by her no matter what.
That's nice.
He also says he would trust her with just about any job before a man. We don't know much about their past, but we do know that they were not allowed to have birthday parties, which is why they go pretty crazy when it is their friend Daryl's birthday, and they throw him a big party that they call Super Soft Birthday Party. And That's one of the first episodes in, I think it's the first season, and they throw their buddy a party, and they get like a horse there, and they make it into a unicorn, and they make cupcakes.
Aww.
And there's lots of pink and lots of shit there, and it's very cute. And Daryl and Dan have like a discussion where they're just like, yeah, like this birthday party is really kind of more for them because they never got to have birthday parties, and so it's cute though.
Aww.
So I really like Katie because her personality is so fun, and she's such a great part of the show. Without her, I don't think that it would be as enjoyable because she adds a bit of heart and softness to the Hicks that three dudes just can't quite capture on their own. Like, I think adding that little bit of like femininity into the like very masculine kind of situation does really well to like create that balance for good comedy. Mm-hmm. I have one more episode that I want to talk about because it blends three of the female characters together, and it's cute. It's season 5, episode 1, titled We Don't Fight at Weddings. I love a good wedding episode in television. It's always great. They usually deliver pretty good, and you get to see everybody dress up and look nice. So the Hicks are invited to their friends Ron and Dax's wedding. Unfortunately, some of the other guests are from the city, and 3 city guys in particular are being extremely pervy and pompous assholes who make inappropriate passes at Katie, Bonnie, and Tanis. Mm-hmm. So Tanis is there as a date with Wayne, and Katie is just there because she was invited, and Bonnie, I believe, was also invited. Multiple times throughout the episode, Wayne has to remind everybody that we do not fight at weddings because everybody wants to throw down. Like, these cityots is what they call them, are just getting on everybody's nerves. And so Katie and Bonnie entice the 3 men to a hotel room where the Hicks and Tanis are waiting to beat them up.
Oh.
So they're not at the wedding. They are adjacent to the wedding.
Adjacent to the wedding. Got it.
And then the door opens up. You see these 3 dudes just like sprawled out across like multiple furnitures in the hotel room. And then everybody goes back to join the rest of the wedding party. And the episode kind of ends with the grooms having their like dance to like, you'd think like a romantic song or something, but no, because it's Letterkenny and romance is strange. And so they dance to the song Fuck the Pain Away by Peaches.
Oh.
Which if you haven't heard that song, listen to it in the context of thinking that 2 grooms who just got married are dancing to it. And it will give you a whole new level of weird appreciation for it. It's great. I wanted to highlight this episode because it really shows the family dynamic that the whole show has. Everyone may not be the same or even get along all the time, but they stick together when it comes to outsiders. We also get to see Katie, Bonnie, and Tanis, and all the boys dressed up, which I love seeing because they're usually just in like farming clothes or like normal everyday clothes. And so getting to see them kind of dressed up and done up nice is really fun. And we get a wild gay wedding in a show about a small town. And it reminds me a lot of that kind of hate doesn't exist mentality that we get in a show like Schitt's Creek as well. Mm-hmm. Where there are people of all these different sexualities and everything in this town. And that kind of bigotry and hatred doesn't seep in because they're family. They are a part of Letterkenny. Mm-hmm. And so we appreciate them and we respect them no matter their differences or whatever. And so it's really sweet that it all kind of comes together and they have fun at this crazy gay wedding that I think they actually admit is for tax purposes, which is funny because these 2 gay characters are also like at the gym and they riff a lot with Riley and Jonesy. And so they're this funny little like quartet of comedy with these 2 like hyper masculine hockey players and these 2 like gay gym rats, and it fits weird. A lot of this show, it doesn't make sense why it would fit, but it does, and it works, and it's great. Kind of an overall collection of why I like all of the women is you may have noticed that the 2 episodes I chose to talk about for Tanis and Katie specifically involved them actually getting into a physical altercation. And that is because very often in the show, the men fight for all sorts of reasons, from pride to honor to duty and whatever in between. But when we get to see the women fight, it always seems to be for a very good reason. Tanis was putting a Nazi in his place, and Katie was getting a bit of payback for her brother in a way he is far too much of a gentleman to ever have considered.
Aww.
So in the show, like, you really know that when the women throw down, like, shit has gotten a bit more personal. But it's nice because in the same way that when the men fight, it's over at the end, it's when the women fight, it's also over at the end. Like, they don't keep holding these grudges. They don't, like, keep being catty with each other.
Yeah.
Which I find can be a very big shortcoming of a lot of different shows.
Stories, yeah, I agree.
Shows and stories. These characters are not perfect by any stretch. They all have their flaws and strengths, but at the end of the day, they're all trying to do right by the people around them. I don't think these characters were ever supposed to be idolized. Like, that's not how they're portrayed. They're not portrayed as perfect people.
They're portrayed as people.
Yeah, they're portrayed as recognizable people who you're like, I can see myself in that person, or I can see my friend in that person, which... Writing characters like that and portraying them successfully is a really good way to endear them to the audience and to kind of ground the show in a way. Like, Nick talks about it all the time when he refers to something like Jackass. He remembers going to see Jackass 3D in the movie theater, and he kind of had this weird feeling of like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with my friends, the Jackass guys again. And whenever we would watch Letterkenny, because these characters are so relatable and so familiar, you feel like you're going to hang out with your friends. That's not what it is, but that's kind of the vibe that you get from the show. That's kind of the feeling that you get. And there are very few shows that have really, like, done that for me. I find it is a lot of comedy. Something like Schitt's Creek got me hard with that one. And so it's a very sweet, surprisingly endearing show for how, like, crass and ridiculous and sometimes offensive it can get, but it's nice. Lastly, as you can tell, all of the women in this television show like to fuck. The way that they like to fuck varies greatly and is portrayed not necessarily as a good thing, but as a normal thing. So it's not like, oh, look at this, we're having these women be sexually open and all this stuff. And it's just like, no, like, well, women are like this. Women exist this way. This isn't abnormal. Like, there are women out there like this, and, like, portrayed in such a way that you kind of connect with them, and they make it so that you like them, and they're not a joke. Like, their sexuality, like, Gail, different. Her attitude is 100% a joke. Because it's so over the top. But the women who are doing it at, like, more of, like, quote-unquote normal level, it's just what it is. It is just life. It is just these women being people. Because, newsflash, women have a sex drive. And it is completely normal and deserves to be shown and talked about more. And these women are all so sex positive, and you can see them a lot as the initiators and the instigators of the encounters that they have, which is really nice. Like, they are usually the ones doing the chasing rather than, like, the other way around, which is also pretty unique, and I love it. I think it's great.
Aww.
Yeah. So that's why I love all the ladies of Letterkenny. They're wonderful. What are you excited about, Fonda?
Oh, man. Alison, there's a lot going on in the world of things. So what I'm excited about right now is actually my husband, Adam, got me into a new D&D podcast. It's called Not Another D&D Podcast.
Okay.
Funny enough. And their whole slogan is like, welcome to the campaign after the campaign, right? Because, like... It's like, hey, here's another D&D podcast after a campaign you probably just finished. Yeah. So there's the Dungeon Master is Brian Murphy, and the three main players are Emily Axford, Jake Hurwitz, and Caldwell Tanner. A lot of them were part of, like, the College Humor Days, and two of them, Brian and Emily, are part of Dimension 20, which is another like D&D thing that people might be familiar with. Anyways, I just started listening to their second campaign because there's only 6 episodes out, and I actually find it quite funny and enjoyable. I like that It's only like an hour and a little bit, so kind of like the Adventure Zone. It's quite short. But they have a guy named Henry, and he acts like an old man, and he's a fighter, and every time he does something, he's like, "My back!" He's just like, and he's just like, I'm just like, oh, you're a person.
My back!
My back! And he's talking about, like, hot plates, and he likes potato skins, and it's just, like, I don't know, it's just funny, and it kind of has been something I'm enjoying listening to when there's just, like, rough days. Because I love a bunch of other stuff, but there's, like, dumb fandom discourse happening, and a lot of stuff I like, and I don't find any content. Like, there's no one I follow on social media and stuff that like none other D&D podcasts. So when I listen to it, I can just listen to it, enjoy it, and like that's it. So I'm really into that right now.
Yeah, that's nice. Sometimes it's nice to have something kind of separate away from like fandoms for yourself.
Yeah.
It can get a little tough, especially when it's something that people do connect a lot with and then they put a lot of their feelings into. But everybody at the end of the day has to remember that that's that creator's thing.
Yeah.
Like, you as a consumer don't necessarily get to tell them what to do. And if you don't like it, then don't
consume it. Yeah, exactly. Well, dear listeners, you can find us wherever podcasts can be found. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already, especially reviewing and giving us rates. It really helps other people find us. You can follow us on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram at Wench Bench Pod. And if you want to reach out, you can send us an email at wenchbenchpod@gmail.com. All of the art for the Wench Bench was designed by the wonderful Tessa Joyce Riecken. And you can find her on Twitter and Instagram at wherever. She's dope. She's awesome. Love her very much. Anyways, thanks for listening. And we'll talk to you soon. Peace. Wait, how do they say goodbye in Letterkenny?
Oh, probably just bye.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those pitfalls that you get in a lot of comedies, you know, where like they'll hang up the phone without saying goodbye. It's just like the conversation's over and then you end it.
Oh.
And it's just like nobody says goodbye. I don't particularly, there's not anything.
Oh, okay. I was gonna be, I guess it'd be
pitter patter.
Pitter patter.
To be fair.
I don't like that. Get rid of what I just said. I didn't like how it sounded out of